All right, so this week our topic is nighttime photography. In the past 2 weeks, we talked a little bit about exposures and about supplemental lighting and flashes. So let's talk specifically about dealing with nighttime photos. Because remember, why is my thing not working? There we go. All right, because remember, crimes will happen at night. You will have folks who will be involved in crimes at nighttime. It will have evidence outside. So even if you have a robbery inside of a store, even if you have a burglary inside of somebody's house, and you're showing up there as the evidence technician, as the investigator, chances are there will be evidence outside, because as they left the scene, as they entered the scene, they were in the outside world. And so footwear impression evidence, tire track impression evidence, a number of things could be left outside your crime scene or outside of in the outside world, making your crime scene also be outside, requiring you to do outdoor nighttime photography. In addition, we do a lot of crime scenes that are car crashes or vehicle crashes. So our crashes happen at night on a fairly regular basis. We do have plenty of daytime crashes, don't get me wrong, but a lot of our good fatalities, a lot of the good doozies, are alcohol related, and alcohol tends to be a nighttime consumption thing. So do keep in mind our outdoor crime scenes become the big challenge, because while a non-crash crime scene outside could just be limited to like a driveway, a street, a small section, a crash scene might cover a vast area, a vast swath of land. So that becomes the real difficult part of our nighttime photography when we're dealing with a crash scene, especially, out on a county road where there might not be as many streetlights, or in some neighborhoods where they are putting in, slightly less streetlights because of light pollution and people complaining about too much light at night coming in their bedroom windows. So we have a couple of options. Change the ISO setting on your camera, be a little higher. If you've got a higher ISO, you are making the sensor in the camera more sensitive to light. There's positives and negatives to that. You can use your flash. Flashes are designed to provide light. Positives and negatives to that. We can bring in some additional lights, something as simple as just making sure we park cars, squad cars and response vehicles properly and shine the headlights on the scene. We have some other options also. Maybe it's close to sunrise. We'll just wait for the sun to come up. And then also we have something called painting with light. And each of these options have their pros and their cons. Each of these options have something that makes them good, but there's also some things that make them bad. And I'm not going to go too much into these, simply because that is your discussion board question for the week. And, so I want you to think about some of the pros and cons to these. And I'll give you one away here, the higher ISO, the pro is that, you're able to see more, but the con is the fact that as our ISO numbers go up, we start to get graininess. So here is an example where we can see that, at 100, we get an okay photo, but it's a little dark and shadowy. And so as we bring up the ISO, it's starting to look more like this bridge, but we are now losing definition. So you can't use that one in your discussion posting per se, but think about some other things. Now, bringing in portable lights. We have lots of options for portable lights. Like I said, you can use car headlights. That's a portable light in some respects, bringing in a light source. What about, if we're off the road, or if we're someplace far away from the road, or, just because we need the lights on the squad car to be blinking, and we don't want the red and blue lights, so we need the cars parked back further. There's some issues there. And so we've got different light sources. The old standbys are just portable lights, where you can bring them in, run extension cords back to police vehicles, fire vehicles, whatever the case may be. Some of our light systems, like this particular one here, has a huge battery pack. That's pretty much all this Pelican case is batteries. The lights are mounted to the outside of the Pelican case. You charge it up. It's got telescoping arms, as you can see here. All these little things are release locks, where you can slide these things way the heck high up in the sky and light up your scene. They can even twist to the left and to the right, so you can have a little bit more light cast over a wider area. These systems actually are fairly inexpensive these days, you know, just a few $100. You think about some of the light systems that were out there years ago and how much money we spent on them. Something that's kind of new, they're not super new, but they're kind of new. We also are starting to see inflatable lights and, you know, just a little generator. Some of these are plug-in units too, where you end up inflating a tube of a fabric that is usually some light white type color. A couple of LEDs are strung along inside of there, and when you turn on the fan, it pops up, kind of like some of your inflatable Christmas ornaments or some of the inflatable things you see in front of stores. And instead of like being the dancing guy like you see in front of some of the stores, with this light colored fabric, the fabric will then begin to glow because of the string of LEDs inside. And usually there's a cluster of LEDs up at the top, and so you get a big bright glow, but the whole thing is glowing. You know, again, you're looking at something that's fairly inexpensive, something we can get for just a few $100, and you know, you can very portable with both the inflatable lights and these Pelican light systems. Very, very portable. You can have 2 or 3 of them in the trunk of almost any car, or you could put one in the trunk of multiple cars. And so now when we're out at a scene, as long as you've got a couple people there, you can throw these things out of the trunk of the cars and get yourself some light. All right, so you know, flash photography is something we had talked quite a bit about. So let's talk just a little bit about this painting with light. Flash photography is something we covered last week, so you should know some of the pros and cons there. All right, when we talk about painting with light, we're not talking about this. This is a form of painting with light, yes, where we have somebody take and use long exposure. So you set up at night, you set your camera shutter speed to be open for like a minute, and you walk around with a sparkler, and you know, you draw a shape. So here we have a guy drew Batman. This is pretty cool. This is artistic. That's pretty neat. Has no practical application for us at crime scenes. So that's not the painting of light we're talking about. We are talking about this CSI painting with light. So on the left we see a crime scene and a bunch of evidence markers out there. They're not really marking anything. It's just a mock crime scene. And as you can see, they vanish pretty quickly. The flash doesn't have enough power. That inverse square rule. So what do? We set the camera up on a tripod. We leave the camera shutter open for like a minute. And all these little halos you can see here is somebody walking along with a flash unit, clicking the button to set off the flash. The other thing that we can do is use a flashlight, and so we can stand back off to the side or stand behind the camera and use a flashlight to paint in the scene. And so I've got a pretty nice YouTube video embedded here into the classroom also, which talks about painting with light. It's an artistic thing. The guy does a barn, and I think he does a truck if I remember right also. And he shows you how at nighttime he sets up his camera on a tripod, he takes a flashlight, and he shines the light and slowly paints in the scene. This is also your homework for this week. This is my assignment to you, is to do painting with light. Again, I do not want this. I do not want this. I want this. I want you to put a couple objects outside after dark. Use a flashlight. If you have a SLR camera and a detachable flash, try it with a flash unit too. But set your camera up on a tripod, leave the shutter open for, you know, like 30 seconds or so, a minute, whatever the case may be. Do some experiments, try it out. It's always kind of fun to experiment with it. And paint in the scene with a flashlight, paint in the scene with the flash unit. If your camera, for whatever reason, does not have that mode where you can set your shutter speed, feel free to use the fireworks mode. I will warn you about this. The fireworks mode usually is like 8 to 10 seconds. So you got to be pretty quick. You got to be ready to go when you click that button. But do an experiment. Try a number of things out. Try some different time periods also. See what happens right after the sun goes down. See what happens, you know, a little later at night, depending on how late you stay up. Maybe even try a couple different locations where there are some streetlights, where there aren't some streetlights, you know, so your front yard, your backyard, whatever the case may be, whatever you have access to. But otherwise, this is essentially what we're looking at for nighttime photography as it relates to CSI work. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a phone call, drop me an email, stop in and see me, and I will talk to you next week.